Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Definitely Gospel Centered. I'm your host, Gaby Duke, and here on the vodcast, we have real talk, real conversations in American Sign Language. And I am so excited at our conversation today because we're going to be talking about sibling relationships. And today, also so excited to introduce you to our guest. We have Lexi here with us today, and then we also have her brother, Dakota, here with us on the vodcast. So welcome to both of you guys today.
Thanks
for having us.
Yes, so excited to get to talking. So how are y'all?
Dakota?
Doing pretty good. Just at home from college, just resting for the summer.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm really exhausted. I just finished a full year of remote learning, so yeah, that's done with now. I can take a bit of a breather, but going back to my internship next week, so that's good. Yeah.
Do you guys go to the same college?
No.
No, she goes to Gallaudet.
Right, and Dakota goes to Grand Canyon University out in Arizona.
Yeah, she lives in D.C.
Oh, wow, that's pretty far apart.
Phoenix, not Arizona, more specifically Phoenix.
But now you guys are
that
back
would be about,
home?
Let's see, 2,000 or 3,000 miles. Is that right, Dakota?
Yes,
And your home's in Virginia, right?
Well, yeah, that's a bit of a long story.
Home's in
So
Texas,
we were born. Oh, go ahead.
But parents, they have like their own story and everything like that. They moved to Virginia. Dad's a pastor, deaf pastor there for a Baptist church in Richmond.
Okay.
Right? So he moved out that way.
Yeah, so really, I like to tell people that for me, I was born and raised in Texas, but I lived early on in my life in Virginia, but I'm still a Texas girl, really. I don't really identify, or I know Dakota doesn't really identify with a home state, but I am a Texan.
I feel like I'm a home state wherever I go, so it becomes my home state. It's 5 states in a few years, so I don't really feel like I have a home state.
Washington, Texas, Virginia, Arizona, and Georgia, right?
Those are the places.
Yeah, that's a lot of different places in all across the U.S., right? So, okay then. So, which one of you is the oldest?
So Dakota is,
Yeah, I'm oldest.
but only by like 1 year, a year and 4 months.
That's
so not that much.
A big age gap.
No, we're pretty close in age.
Yeah, 16, just 16 months.
We're close.
Just 16 months apart. And I was really a surprise baby.
I see.
My parents were not planning on having me. They thought that they would have a hard time getting pregnant with a second child. Maybe TMI there, but I was a surprise baby, so I came right behind him.
That's so close, yeah.
Yeah, we are actually only 1 grade apart. We're right behind each other in school.
They thought a hearing baby wasn't enough, so they wanted a deaf baby.
That's not true.
I love that. That's funny. So, Dakota, you're hearing, right?
Yeah,
and Lexi, you're deaf.
That's right. I'm deaf.
Okay, how fun is that? So, I'm wondering, Lexi, then, when you realized that your ability to hear was different compared to other individuals, how did that affect you?
So it didn't really occur to me growing up at first because my mom is deaf, my dad is deaf, my grandparents on my mom's side of the family are deaf. So I have other family that are deaf as well. And they all live close to where I was when I was growing up in the Dallas area. So I saw, my cousins, Dakota, everybody around me was signing. So I don't think that it really hit me that I was different when I was growing up until I was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 when I went to school.
Okay.
And I started realizing that, me and Dakota are different, and Dakota is different from me. And it didn't really bother me because we were in a signing environment, so.
That's just so amazing that you have so many deaf family members, and then so many family members who know sign language. That's
I'd like
really
to add,
unique.
The first time I realized that I was different too was when I was 5, because I was at my friend's house a long time ago. Because captioning wasn't easy to actually turn on the TV. Now it's really easy to turn on closed captions and everything. But I was trying to figure out how to actually turn closed captions on, and I was at my friend's house when we were watching TV with my friend and his family. And I was watching, I'm like, something's wrong. I couldn't necessarily figure out what was wrong with the TV. I was like, the TV's broken, because it didn't have closed captioning on it. I was like, something's wrong with the TV. And then I realized not all families have closed captioning on their TV, and then I realized why they didn't always have closed captioning on their TV. So that's when I realized that my family wasn't the one that was classified as normal, and that's when I realized they were actually deaf.
How interesting is that? So when you realized then that you were hearing and Lexi is deaf, how did you adequately process
well,
that?
Honestly, the whole time, in regards to verbal talking, never really actually processed in my head naturally in a way.
Okay.
It was simultaneous communication, or it wasn't really different.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Dad did. I should say my father did speak with Dakota, and my mom did some too. But when we all got together as a family, the 4 of us would always use sign language in any sort of situation like that. So I feel like for Dakota, there might not have been one clear moment. It might have just been more of kind of a gradual process. And honestly, even today, we are still working through that process of trying to figure out where we stand in relation to each other.
Growing up, there was a lot of
that's real life for you. It's a process.
That for sure.
Because the siblings really actually had their own language, but we actually did have our own language. We still sometimes have conversations with just our eyes. It's the way we talked.
Wow.
And really that, could be called an intimate sign register or intimate dialogue, because so often when we're talking to each other, we would sign so fast that our parents wouldn't understand what we were talking
sign
about.
Language at the college
They'd be like, I don't know what they're talking
years. And sometimes she still doesn't understand how fast we sign to each other.
Wow, that is so unique, to have that with somebody else. And I guess, with your, as you've grown up and your adult life, you say it's very similar.
For sure. Sometimes our parents won't understand Dakota, and I'll be like, oh, he means, whatever it is that he just said. And sometimes I'll sign something and my parents are like, what? And Dakota will, interpret for me and say, oh, she just said such and such. So we're still doing that to this day.
That's so interesting. So I've never really, thought about that part of having a sibling, who signed. I've heard of twins, being able to communicate in a very unique way. I've heard, I'm not a twin myself, but that's just such a unique communication pattern to have with another person. And that just seems like something you guys have a very intense and unique connection just for communication. So I know you said that your father was a pastor, right, Dakota? Okay, so how did you guys, or I guess when you guys, I guess I should say, when did you guys accept Christ, and what did that look like for each of you?
So I accepted Christ when I was almost 6, but I didn't really fully understand and grasp that concept until I was about 13. So growing up, we were always involved in church, Awanas, all of that. So I used to tell people that I really understood Jesus Christ for the first time deeply when I was 13.
I'd say that's pretty similar to me. I was about 5.
Dakota?
And I heard the pastor and everything like that. He was really on, it was really the fire and brimstone sermon. It's like, if you're not saved, you're going to hell. That's the sermon. And so I was scared, and I was like, I don't want to go to hell. So I raised my hand and everything like that. And I went to a church in Dallas. and I was attending a church there and was down.
The parking garage.
We went down into a garage parking at a car, and I thought that's what hell was and everything. So then I talked to my dad about receiving Christ.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember Mom telling you, she was holding me and she had your hand as you guys were walking downstairs. And Dakota wouldn't go downstairs because he thought that going downstairs meant he was going to hell, down to hell. So my mom was trying to explain, no, sweetie, we're just going down the stairs. We're not going to hell, just down the stairs.
Yeah, but really
it's so
growing
interesting.
up, we were pastors' kids, so we had a pretty good, I'd say, awareness of the Bible, but not like a really in-depth knowing the Bible.
Right, knew about
we just
Jesus.
had a head knowledge.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we were confident about what faith was and everything like that. We were understanding what he was saying. And so we were those kids in the Bible studies and everything like that. But to be very honest, until I was about like maybe 19, 20, I was reading Romans 6 when it talked about dying to sin the way that Christ did. And so that was something that really impacted me. And it was really showing me that I knew the gospel, but I didn't really have that acceptance of the gospel truly ingrained in me.
Wow, so that's like, very similar to my story. I knew who Jesus was growing up. I had accepted the gospel message, but I didn't have a deeper understanding until, my adult life, probably sometime in college, that I realized the real depravity of my sin and my need for a savior, like on a daily basis, right? And how I had to give my sins up to the Lord.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with
forgiveness.
America, because they know like kind of like in regards to like the law. If you look back in Genesis, like the Hebrew word, I can't remember the exact word, but it's more of like an inspired, real, true relationship with God, and like Adam and Eve knew God. And so a lot of Americans look, we know of what the Bible is. We know of what this terminology is. We know of this.
No, yeah. Or to put it in more simple terms, I think a lot of us think that we know God, but we really know about God. We don't really know or have a relationship with him closely like we think we do. I mean, just to kind of put it in simpler terms.
The relationship part is missing.
Right.
Yeah. So how did you two... how do you communicate with God? I'd love to hear that from each of you.
Yeah, in my head, most of the time, I would say, just as I'm thinking through things to myself, sometimes I will sign, sometimes I will use my voice. When I'm alone by myself, I might use my voice. But sometimes I'll write out things, I'll journal. But most of the times it's just in my head, having a conversation with God. And for me, the way that I communicate with God is often through watching music videos of like lyrics of worship songs, things like that.
I think one of the things for both of us is because we tended to lead worship. For like the deaf in Kentucky, we had and that was a really unique way for us.
Wow.
Is that we had the ability to lead others into worship. But specifically in a application
That's
to me.
really cool.
On long drives, I really close my eyes. I don't close my eyes, I should say, because I'm driving, but like I'll spend time in prayer, and I'll listen to hymns and sermons, and I'll spend time praying. And journaling is something that I found out more recently that's been really helpful for me. Specifically, it's really inventive ways in some ways to be very intentional with Christ. Like David did in Psalms and everything, and that's just one of the things that's been really applicable to me, is just kind of writing worship out for Christ.
So Dakota, you had this multiple languages growing up, right? Using sign language or using
really
your
strange
voice.
For me. It's,
like, do you have a preference for which, or how do you go in
when
and out
I'm
of
sick
each one?
and I don't feel well, I typically want to necessarily talk. But signing is sometimes hard for me just because of the people I live with and my friends. They don't know sign, so it really just depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I like I have really like a big want to just kind of like I will code switch,
code
and that's what
switching.
happens between
Yeah.
English and ASL and everything. Sometimes
This
I'm
is the same
talking,
for
and
that.
sometimes I feel like my voice is like in some cases too high, so I will monitor myself, and sometimes I'm speaking, sometimes I'm signing, so it just really just depends.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, so I'm sure that, well, I have two siblings, or two sisters, I should say, and one brother, and it's very easy for us to get frustrated with each other, right? It happens. So for each of you, how does your relationship with God affect your relationship with each other, or how you guys communicate with each other? How do you guys struggle through that, deal with conflict? I'm wondering what that looks like for you guys.
So in general, it really just depends. I really feel like God really works on us, and sometimes I want alone time, and sometimes Lexi wants alone time and everything. So it just depends on the mood, because she's a little bit more extroverted.
Always, you're the opposite. We are the opposite of each other 24/7. Like, for example, the other day, I was in the mood to go to Target, right? And just look around, get some window shopping done. Not actual shopping, right? Just see what they had. I wanted to get out of the house. And most of the time, I like staying home, and he likes to go out. So I went over and
To be
asked him.
fair, I was
He was
saying
like, yeah, I don't want to go. I want to stay home. And I'm like, come on, you are always the opposite of me. Why is this? So I think that God works things out that way, honestly, where we always are bringing out the best and sometimes the worst in each other, Can't have one without the other. So I think that how it relates to our relationship with God is that often, I'll make a confession. So growing up, the two of us got into a lot of fights, sometimes physical, sometimes verbal, just to be honest there. But I think that the point is learning how to forgive each other, how to forgive and move forward. And I think that of the relationship,
Yes.
I'm typically the one that likes to hold grudges, right? So I think that for me, if we're having an argument, if me and Dakota have an argument, I'm going to be more likely to hold a grudge, give him the silent treatment, whatever. And then when I'm praying with God, I feel God is looking at me being like, seriously? And I'm saying to him, I don't want to forgive
Actually,
Dakota
her
yet.
way.
But God is just staring me down. I can picture him giving me this like death
If she
stare,
actually had her way,
saying, Lexi, seriously? So
I probably wouldn't be
So that's one
forgiven,
example.
For quite some time. There's something that happened like 12 years ago, so.
Oh, no. I don't remember what you're talking about, but
12
okay.
years ago? What happened then?
I don't know. There was one famous story that our family tells, though, of one day I locked him in our
It's
TV
huge
cabinet. Do you know back in the day, in the early 2000s, we had these massive
Oh,
pieces
yeah.
of furniture that housed our TVs with doors on the front, right? It's got all of the DVDs, VHSs, the VCR, all of that in there. And, I was 2 and he was 3. We had just moved to a new house. And he had crawled inside the TV cabinet. And so I saw it as
Oh
a
my gosh,
fun
you
opportunity,
locked
so I
it?
shut the door on him. And there was no way for him to get out. And both of our parents are deaf, and I am deaf as well, right? So an hour went by,
Oh
then 2
my
hours went by, and my mom
gosh.
started saying, it seems kind of quiet in here. Where is Dakota? And I kept telling her by pointing. I would point to the TV cabinet, but she thought I wanted to watch a movie or something. So she was like, no, we can't watch a movie. I'm busy right now. But I kept pointing to the TV cabinet. And she finally realized. She opened the TV cabinet, and he was sitting in there crying, saying, you don't love me. You don't love me. Oh, it was heartbreaking.
He's
But
trying
then
to be
guess what
fair.
he did the next day? He locked me in the pantry. So... oh, yeah, that's our relationship. There's a lot
Yeah.
of back and forth like that. But now I really think that it's pretty safe to say that the older that we become, the more that we figure
I
out
phone for an hour yesterday.
that
so
relationship, for the most part.
And like more recently, we went out
Right,
to eat
right.
for Mother's Day
How funny.
to Olive Garden, and
Ugh.
I like ordered for the table and everything like that, and I ordered like my dad and my mom, and then like we all sat down and we passed down like the silverware and everything, and there's like the kids menu and everything, and she was getting out like all the stuff out, like the crayons and everything like that. It was just for,
Yeah,
like, the
no
silverware and
knife,
everything.
no
Like, we had
spoon,
5
just the
adults, 4 adults.
No knife in my
and 1
silverware
kid,
at all.
So,
Yeah, for the record, I'm 19 years old, and he told them that I was a kid. And I'm just like, seriously, man? Seriously. But, I mean, it's sometimes nice because some of those little pranks are good because they bring a little bit of levity into the situation sometimes.
She always watches more like serious TV shows, and I always watch more like the comical TV shows and everything like that. So I bring kind of that lightness to it. She brings a little bit more of that serious notes of it. I almost did.
You
but I
were
was being
about to
nice.
say that I bring the dark, weren't you?
That's funny. So growing up for me, I am the oldest, and then my sister's the second oldest, and then another brother and a younger sister. So growing up, I would try to watch something fun, on TV. And I'm not sure if you guys remember or even know of the show called Channel 13. Bunch of old people on that channel. It's old TV shows.
Older.
Well, similar, but it's more like older people, like just, I don't know, it's some weird old shows. But I would try to watch it, and my sister would take the TV remote like out of my hands and change it immediately to that channel. Not because she wanted to watch it, but because she knew that I never wanted to watch it, and she knew that would annoy me. So when it was her turn to pick a TV show, to pick something to watch, she would change it to channel 13 every single time just to get at me. It was so infuriating. She was trying to annoy me, and it worked. But, when it was my mom's turn to watch TV next, and then, frustration only grew from there. So
yes.
I totally get that. I will say, though, I think it's just cool to learn from the two of you how your personality really does balance out each other, because you guys seem pretty opposite.
Well, really, it's very balanced. It's great. But it's sometimes a little annoying because he's the opposite of me in almost every way. And it's like, I wish that we had something that was the similar between the two of us. But I think growing up, it was hard to see past the differences. But now that we're older, we can start to identify the things
ways that we are different.
That we do have in common.
It's just
like how
we actually accept information, how we process information.
Processing, thought process, and how we, our political beliefs, some of those, or at least some of the political beliefs are similar there. So we are different, but I think the older that we become, the more that we are able to accept and even embrace those differences.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, I want to say too, just, how you can challenge each other as an adult, but in a good way. It lends itself opportunities. If everyone was the same, there would be no challenge for us to grow. So, you guys are able to, from a similar place, practice showing Christ to each other, right? And maybe challenging in different ways.
We can help each other, like, decompress and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, or at least I hope that the same is true for Dakota, but oftentimes I'll go through things and I'm not ready to talk about those things with my parents yet. So what I'll do is I see Dakota as my go-to person, and I'll say, okay, I'm feeling such and such, and he'll be my rock in those moments. And he is able to show me God in those moments. Not in a sort of cocky way, but just saying, hey, this is what the Bible says about this, or this is what we were taught. And so that's a huge advantage to that brother-sister relationship that we have. And really, yeah, I think that siblings are amazing because we're not afraid to tell each other hard truths. Like, for example, Dakota was in a relationship, and I didn't like the girl that he was with.
Passing like the license is like 0. It's like, I'm trying.
I mean, I typically am right. So far,
5-0.
I have a 4-0 track record with the girls that Dakota has picked. Oh, 5-0. Okay. So I'm always right.
Compared to my
I'll just say,
parents,
you know
they're
what?
like 3
She's not the one.
3-2.
And the next girl, not the one. Yeah, my parents will sometimes be like, yeah, I think that girl is the one. I'll say, no, she's not. And they'll say, oh, wait, just give it some time. And later they'll come back to me and say, oh, you were right. I was like, I tried to tell you. She was not the one for Dakota. And sometimes he doesn't like it, but I will tell him, look, I love you, but that girl is not for you. And he'll be like, oh, seriously? And after he leaves, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just telling you. I know you. I know that she's not good for you. So siblings can be blunt and have those hard conversations, whether you want it or not. But it's a blessing in disguise.
So in your journey, in your experience, just in your relationship as siblings, can you guys maybe look back and think of a tough season that you guys were in that was like a tough season for your relationship?
So I have something.
And share how you navigated
it's
that?
It's pretty serious. So back in 2018, near Christmas time, our grandmother had passed away. I was at college for the first time, and as we already know, we went. So I was trying to prove myself as tough and on my own and everything like that. But I fell in that depressing moment. It was really, really hard. And I tried to kind of, in some cases, like, save myself. And it was really difficult because because of the way my grandparents had passed away and everything like that. And so I was just like, no. So in some cases, I was trying. So in some ways, I kind of broke a trust that she had in me. So it was a really, really tough time. And so it was a really, really tough journey for us. Because I was constantly, I couldn't be that constant in my family because I was trying to be that constant for myself and everything like that. I obviously got really lucky with the way things happened and everything like that. But it was a really, really tough time because I didn't know where like relationships would go and everything like that. I really thought she would never speak to me again, and the Lord really was opening my heart and her heart so that she was able to see things from my perspective as well. And so we were able to get through that time. And I mean, since that time, our relationship, I'd say, was like the best it's ever been. But we hit rock bottom there, and we just only went up from there.
Yeah. I think for me, I had just finished my senior year that year. And our grandmother was amazing. She was like a bright light in our lives.
At all.
And so that light went out when she passed away. I mean, if you had known her, you would have just been shocked. And then, of course, we're all grieving. We're going through this process together, that we've lost this anchor in our lives. And then I was at school and my mom told me, Dakota tried to kill himself. And my first thought in my head was, 1, why? And 2, why the heck didn't he talk to me? If he didn't feel like he could talk to our parents about it, why wouldn't he talk to me? And the fact that he chose to not confide in me, with everything else that was going on in that season of life, that really hurt. Because it made me wonder where I went wrong in our sibling relationship. If he didn't feel like he could could confide in me. Is it that I'm not trustworthy enough, or what is it? And I was wondering, what he was thinking of. I mean, honestly, a lot of my thoughts at that time were very selfish, of course. Obviously was so thankful that he was not successful. But I was so mad that I felt like I could have choked him for even thinking about it. So, yeah, for the first couple of months, for me as the baby sister, I've always looked, and I still do look up to Dakota. So I see him as this like perfect, valiant big brother, and he annoys me all the time, of course, but then to see him and say, oh, okay, he's human too. So, that really changed the way that the two of us relate to each other and see each other some. But I think it changed our relationship for the better looking back. So, especially for me, I have had several seasons in my life where I've thought about it, but gone through depression, things like that. And so we've been able to bond over that. So I'll text him and say, hey, I'm having a really rough time. And I know he's been where I am. So, and vice versa, honestly. So, yeah, that was probably the roughest season. But it actually did make our relationship stronger.
That is a tough thing to go through and experience. For healing, for that process for healing, what did that look like in your relationship after that season? What did that healing process start as or look like? Like Dakota, you said that you thought Lexi would never even talk to you again. And Lexi, you were so frustrated with him for the decisions that he made. So how did you guys start that healing process? I just kind of want to know what that looked like for you guys.
Well, the process.
Yeah, so first of all, he moved back home. And so our bedrooms were right next to each other. And so our rooms were, so close that you couldn't avoid each other. I couldn't avoid him. So I think one of the first keys to processing it was just forgiving him forgiving me for being upset with him about it, and me forgiving him for withholding the truth from me. And so I think that it required forgiveness on both of our parts, honestly. And that helped us move forward. And then just little things. He would sometimes show up to pick me up from school, or he would... sometimes we'd go out for, sibling dinner date sort of thing. Like go to get Cane's chicken or something. And then over those dinners, it was forgiveness, but also a process of unpacking all of that. I would say, hey, this is how I'm feeling when you did this. And he would reply and say, this is how I'm feeling when you responded to the situation that way. And then we would acknowledge each other's points of view.
We were blaming. It really just depends on where the blame went for that. Like that default. Like she blamed her and I blamed me. And really the fact was there was a disconnect.
Wasn't her. Yeah.
And we had to figure out how we could build that relationship back and really recover.
Yeah, that's just... It just reminds me of how the Lord takes the horrible things in our life and changes them, for the good. Like Dakota, you mentioned how your relationship now with Lexi is better than it was before, or stronger than it's ever been before and during the season. And so you guys had, it seems like opportunity to have real deep, honest conversations about real life, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So for all of our viewers who's out there watching this episode right now, if you are struggling with your sibling relationship, or I guess, maybe there's communication breakdown, maybe it's just the situation in life you're going with. Lexi and Dakota, what would you say for encouragement for them right now?
That's something that can lead you to your downfall. Sometimes we react and we fight and we try to muscle through it, and it's I'm right or I'm right. But we have to really accept the fact that one of us had to be wrong. And so it was a pride thing. My area is theology, her area is more history. And so you have to know each other, know their bubbles in a way. and so that there can be a true trust with one another.
Yeah, I think swallowing pride for sure. And then also the importance of reaching out in the first place. I think that that's a first step as well. And honestly, in our relationship, I suck big time at communication. Oh, shut up. Well, I mean, it's true. It's true. So Dakota actually went through and counted, and 14 times in the last semester alone, he has called me. And how many times have I answered? What was it? There you go. There you go. So I am not the best at keeping in touch with people, which is really interesting because, oh man, sometimes we talk about this. Often, if people are upset, they feel like I can talk to my parents and get some information about Dakota's life. But honestly, when we were at home recently together, Dakota's like, here's how I feel when you don't answer my calls. I don't often think to call people because I already know about his life from what my parents are telling us. But I realize that the reason that you call is not always to get information, but to maintain that relationship across a distance. So I've learned that some this semester is really the importance of staying in touch. So those of you who are struggling with your siblings or trust issues or whatever, I would encourage you to take the first step and just reach out, honestly. I mean, sit down together. It might be an uncomfortable conversation that needs to happen, like, I've, failed you as a sibling in this area, or I really need you to step up in this area, or because if you're not talking about it, how is your sibling going to know that there's a problem?
I think a lot of the time people,
before you forgive, you need to be able to understand
they
what
that
the wrong was in the
It'll
first
work
place.
itself out. And in some ways, we thought the same way, but that's not how it works with like a best friend or a husband and wife or anything. You have to. You'll feel like the devil's advocate is playing. Oh, it'll work itself. It'll work itself out.
Any relationship.
There's no excuse for that. We know that that's not true. Because there's always this other thing going on in the background. Everyone is saying something, and their siblings will brag or something. But you have to have that relationship so that you can actually engage with them. You need a brotherly, sisterly relationship, and 9 times out of 10, that's not something that they're just gonna have. Is it gonna be like the whole family, or is it just like one person? I mean, you can't let the statistic be there.
Yeah,
You have to work through that relationship. Because if I had actually passed away, that was the last thing that my sister would have known.
Yeah, and I just read a really cool quote the other day that was talking about out of all of the people on earth, the only person that is going to see you through every stage of your life are your siblings. They are the only ones that are going to get to see every version of who you are. Like in the future, I'm going to meet my future husband. Whenever I meet that person, he won't know what I am as a child. And my children won't know me as a child either. Or, you understand what I'm saying, right? I'm having a little trouble explaining, but every life stage that I'm going through, the person who knows me through all of those stages is Dakota. And same vice versa. I will know him. I've known him from birth until, going on since then. So it's a bit of a sobering thought.
Going back, whenever I got home,
he has been there and will be there.
I got home.
So siblings are really important.
You had told me about the relationship and the closeness. You want our kids to be close and everything like that. And I was like, you need to call me. We can't have a close relationship if you're not reaching back out to me and having that relationship.
Right, and that's because I think for me, my perspective of a healthy relationship, my definition of that is a bit different than it is for Dakota. So I think a healthy relationship is not as much about keeping in touch with people It's more like, I love this person. I still love them. Even if I haven't talked to them often, it just doesn't occur to me. I just assume that, he already knows that I love him, for example. But for Dakota, in order to show that love, keeping in touch is really important.
So one of the things you have to know about the struggles.
So we're still learning about what each other's needs are as siblings.
Are you satisfied with that? Are you wanting to work with your sibling to understand how they feel love? Because sometimes how they feel love and how you feel love isn't correlated.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, you can't be selfish. You have to actually think about them as well and put them first.
Yes.
So are you satisfied, or are you working to try and help that sibling feel the love they need as well?
Absolutely. I think you guys are absolutely right. We have different love languages,
right?
And how we receive love. And honestly, I haven't thought about how that affects sibling relationships in a deep way, but it does.
Yeah, so interesting. Because I think that two of us are so different, but our love languages are close enough. I don't know. So my love language is words of affirmation.
Acts of service.
Whereas his is physical touch. Is that right?
Yep, acts of service.
Gifts? Oh, acts of service. Right, acts of service. Okay. So for me, I wouldn't be as likely to think of acts of service because for me, I receive love through words of affirmation. So I have to remind myself, hey, Dakota receives love through acts of service, things like that. So, so I think love language is important, but love languages aren't only for romantic partner relationships. It can be for any relationship, really all relationships in your life, including sibling
God
relationships.
cares about love because he gave us 15 different words for love. Because there's a brotherly, sisterly love, a sibling love. So it's completely different than like a song of love. So there's different types of love biblically. It's not just talking about like a spousal love like it is in American culture today, but there is different types of love. Remember, there is a sibling love, and then there's a brotherly love as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, so to try to put it all into one sentence, to improve, repair, or maintain your relationships with your siblings, you must forgive, continually forgive.
Every day, right?
Communicate.
Yeah, daily.
Right, yeah. Communicate. Tell your sibling what you need from them, and ask them what they need from you. Whether that be prayer or calling or texting, or have those uncomfortable conversations with each other. And then I guarantee you will see a significant difference in your relationship with your sibling, starting with forgiveness. And honestly, it takes openness.
It's constantly there. Be with them.
Yes, bear hugs. Yes.
I love that. I love that, you guys. And you guys are absolutely right. It all does start with forgiveness. And we have so many opportunities to become frustrated, to misunderstand each other, and forgiveness is
Definitely
going to be all of these things. And we can forgive because Jesus has first forgiven us, right? So we are capable to act and to love and forgive our friends, our family, all these other individuals in our lives. I want to add too that you need to be in prayer for your siblings.
Yeah.
Honestly, pray for hearts to be changed.
God.
Right? God's the only one who can do this, right? So I just love the example you guys have shared with us. It's encouraging to me, just with my own relationship with my siblings. And I know this is something that I need to practice more, especially in forgiveness, right?
Oh, I think we all do. Yeah, we all do.
But thank you guys so much for joining me today on this podcast and having this conversation. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. All right, for all of our viewers and listeners today, if you have any questions, anything you want to know, if you have anything for myself, Lexi, or Dakota, please reach out. I'll make sure connections happen. If you have specific questions, we'll maintain that. So please just let us know. And we'll see you guys on the next episode 2 weeks from now. So see you guys then. Love y'all.
Bye.